Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Wednesday, the 1st of December, first day of the last month of 2021. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island and the New York City tri-state area's largest supplier of rock salt. They've got plenty of it. I know we haven't really had very much winter weather, although we've been peppered with some snow showers on and off the last few days, but eventually it'll come. And also available are all the great snow and ice melt products like Pelledo and Mag Ice Pellets and Flakes, and just about everything else you need to get through this winter, including snow blowers, shovels, spreaders, you name it, they got it at Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon on Long Island, 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So welcome, everybody. Hang on a second. I'm doing this solo tonight because our Mr. Rao is somewhere going through the Drake Passage, I'm guessing. And he mentioned on one of his recent posts that the internet that he has on the ship is woefully slow. Those were his words, woefully slow. So I think that probably means that he's not going to be able to join us tonight. And I'm thinking it may also mean that in terms of some sort of live coverage while he's during the solar eclipse, as he approaches Antarctica in the Weddell Sea, that we probably are not going to be able to see it. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to bet in that direction. If his internet service is woefully slow now, I can't imagine that it would be less slow as he gets deeper and deeper into the Southern Ocean. So I'm sitting here. I may sound okay, but I am still not. I had to go back to the hospital today to get additional blood work and stool sample. I know it's too much information, but you know what? It is what it is. There's still some kind of infection going on in my digestive tract, which started all of this back at the beginning of November. So what usually happens with me is I start to spike a fever during the evening hours, and last night I pushed it to about 102.5, close to 103. Then I take 2 ibuprofen, and I wake up in the morning and I have no fever at all, and I'm good till about the middle of the afternoon. It actually lasts a little longer today than in past days. So the doctor had me come back into the hospital for some additional blood work, and they're going to check out to see what's going on, because I don't need antibiotics from the surgery. Everything there is fine. So there must be some kind of residual infection in my digestive system somewhere. And hopefully all that will mean is I will get a phone call. And I got my phone here just in case they call me this evening. I don't expect them to, but just in case, I get a phone call and that I need to just run to the pharmacy and pick up some of the new meds. So anyhow, I decided to give it a whirl. I have a little bit more energy than I did yesterday. This is going to be a relatively short show. I'm not going to really try to push it much beyond 30 minutes, especially with the way I'm feeling and not having a partner to bounce things off of. It is exceedingly difficult, and if my fever is starting to spike up, it's just going to get increasingly tiring. Thank you for the kind words there, Ellen Norrison on the chat board, and David Coors. And I agree with you, the Taco Cat. Personally, I hate this pattern. It's really funny because there was a comment on one of my videos, and I really felt, I could feel the guy's pain. It's as if in the last 5 or 6 years at least, that we go into this trough in the west, ridge in the east type pattern at the end of November, beginning of December, almost like clockwork. And it's it's getting to be frustrating. And I'll tell you quite honestly, I mean, I really, I was thinking on the idea that the winter was going to be front end loaded. Well, if it's going to be front end loaded, it's going to have to wait at least through the middle part of December and maybe even a bit beyond it. So we may have to redefine what front end loaded actually means, because over the next 10 days to 2 weeks, uh, it's going to be very hard for uh, any kind of uh, wintry precipitation to fall in the coastal areas of the Northeast for sure. Maybe some of the inland areas well up into upstate New York and in central and northern New England might do fairly well, and in and around the Great Lakes might do fairly well. But in terms of persistent cold, it's just not going to happen. We don't have the ingredients there for a persistent cold where it's locked in to the eastern part of the United States. So I thought tonight what I'd do is spend a little bit of time, or actually spend the majority of the time maybe looking at the overall pattern and what it all means as we start the month. And it's been kind of interesting watching this NAO. And I think back to about 10 days or so ago, where I sort of, you know, flippantly said the fact that, because the NAO was being shown to be negative until further notice. And I said, well, we'll wait till tomorrow when we come back and we'll see that it would have flipped in the other direction, because this tends to be pretty volatile. And indeed, that's what happened. The very next day, on the GFS side of the equation, it certainly indicated that. The European model has been sort of fighting the GFS on this idea. I think that's basically you could just throw that out. And if you look at the teleconnections here on the NAO, we're actually trending a little bit positive over the next day or two. So that kind of explains tomorrow, in that we're going to have low pressure kind of racing from the northern lakes to southern Canada, southeastern Canada, and a west wind here. So we're going to warm up nicely tomorrow, well into the 50s and maybe even 60s. And you get down to southern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, down into Virginia. I think you're going to see highs in the 60s. You'll probably see 50s reaching as far north as the lower Hudson Valley and southern New England. Then you see the NAO goes negative again, and that explains the shot of quote-unquote colder air that we're going to have for Friday and going into this weekend. It's not going to be anything exceptional. It is just going to keep temperatures close to average. And then we start to see the NAO actually go positive and in a rather strong way, too. Not crazy strong, but definitely up in that one standard deviation plus from the mean. So there's nothing here to hold cold air in. What's kind of interesting to me is that there are a couple of members that take a long time to get to the neutral line and stay negative in through next week. And then you've got this one member that actually crashes 2 standard deviations negative by the time we get to the middle of the month. I would obviously put those in the outlier box and not really give it too much value. The other thing is, when we look at the PNA, or the Pacific North America Index, it is very problematic. We are seeing the PNA, which is positive right now, trending to neutral. It's going to be going negative. And actually, a number of the members take it between 1 and 2 standard deviations from the mean negative later next week and beyond. So what this is telling us is that the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, is telling us that we're going to have troughing in the western part of the United States and ridging pushing up into the eastern part of the United States. Now, if the NAO is positive, even if it's slightly positive, the ridge in the east is going to try to overwhelm. Okay, if the NAO were neutral or maybe a little bit negative, you could make a case for the fact that it would suppress the ridge off the southeast coast and maybe allow some of the colder air that's going to be building in Canada over time, over the next couple of weeks, to bleed southward. But that is, at this point, I would regard that as a long shot. I wouldn't completely throw it off the table, by the way, But that would be the only way as far as getting anything remotely exciting for winter weather lovers over the next couple of weeks is that we're going to have the NAO be a less positive or at least trend down to neutral and assume that the PNA is as negative as it's being shown here. That is going to be, obviously, is going to be problematic here as we go forward. So I'm going to bring up the 500 millibar. We're going to take a look at this and show you what it means from a practical standpoint. Now, interestingly enough, through all of this, in the next couple of weeks, we are going to see a buildup of colder air in Canada and a continued buildup in snow cover. So those two factors would at least argue that the longer term, later in December, at the very earliest, might turn a little more favorable in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states as the cold air starts to overwhelm. But there's a lot of work to do here. I mean, make no mistake. Now, watch the upper air here. I'm just going to roll it back to where we are now. Now, here we are on Tuesday. So you've got ridging into Greenland, troughing from central Canada to southeastern Canada to off the northeast coast. That lifts out. You got sort of this fast flow with another trough coming in relatively quickly into the east on Thursday, which is what we're going to see tomorrow with a cold front. And then another short wave and another cold front probably on Saturday, which is not going to amount to too much. But all through this, what's happening as we move into next week, notice in the east, the flow is turning southwest from the southeastern part of the U.S. all the way up to Newfoundland. You have troughing dropping down into the northern plains and into the middle Mississippi Valley. That'll temporarily knock the ridge down early next week, but that lifts out. There's no block. If you look up in Greenland here, if you look up in this area, there's a ridge there, but there's no blocking high to just sort of suppress these weather systems and keep them from moving along from west to east. So once that lifts out, we're back into a ridge position off the east coast. It's on the flattish side. See, here's where what I was saying earlier, what you have to hope for is this northern part of the jet stream is a little more dominant, and this, southwestern part of the jet stream perhaps a little less dominant, that you could get some colder air to come down and sort of suppress the pattern a little bit, make it a little bit flatter and a little bit colder. That would be the only way in my view. And then as we head along here, this is the 12Z run, by the way, of the GFS. And you'll notice now that we're at December 11th, we're seeing a big upper high off the southeast coast of the United States. The southeast ridge is there. It's taking over, troughing into the west. Some upper short waves sort of break away and move into the east briefly. But again, they move in and then they move out. And then we're back into a bit of a ridge position. Let me see how much of the 18Z is in. And then we can also look at the polar vortex, which I think is something really important here in terms of the developments. All right, so we've got a good chunk of the 18Z 500 millibar map here. And we'll take a look at this. And you'll notice, that trough in the east, that's going to lift out. The one for Thursday, that lifts out. A little short wave comes by for Saturday. Then you've got another stronger trough moving into the east for Monday, which is going to be the first of three lows that are going to try to move up into the northeast. Here comes a second short wave for Wednesday. And again, notice, by the way, as each one goes by, the ridge pops right up. Then the next one goes by along about Thursday, and then the ridge pops right up. Big upper high off the Florida coast there. The strong southeast ridge right here. That's it. Look, this is where, as I was saying earlier, I mean, here it's just too, it's really too strong and too warm. It would have to be a lot flatter for that. What I mentioned before about the northern stream, perhaps kind of suppressing things a little bit further to the south, where you could have a flatter flow, a weaker flow, and then maybe something could happen. But right now, the clues here are not really showing up. And here we are at December 13th, 14th, moving along to the 15th and 16th, and you just basically have got, just ridging. There's a little bit of troughing that suddenly, starts to be off the East Coast, but and also showing up toward the end of the forecast period is some building pressures up from Greenland and Iceland westward. And the one other thing to pay attention to here is the fact that we've got this, these series of lows in the Aleutians, and this is orchestrating the troughing in the western part of the United States. The model does start to show that going away around the middle of the month as an upper high builds in there into the Aleutians. So that's something we'll probably need to pay attention to. Whether that's a catalyst for some changes in the longer term for the latter part of the month remains to be seen. But I would just say, look, it doesn't look good for winter weather lovers. It's not completely hopeless in the longer term, depending on how much staying power this upper air pattern has. And here's by the way, when we look at it from the standpoint of this particular view, when we're looking at the northern hemisphere, you'll notice here there's a big block that develops over Scandinavia toward the latter part of the forecast period. Now it has to verify. I'm just running this back a little bit, and let me see what the date is on that. But that is Saturday, December 11th. So we're at day 9. So we do see the models trying to build a big upper high there in Scandinavia, and it's a little bit too far to the east, but it is trying. And of course, you see the ridge there that's coming in from the date line into the Aleutians out on the Pacific side. So again, not completely hopeless, but not exactly screaming that we're going to see some sort of this pattern is going to change after a couple of weeks. I mean, we'll have to just watch these clues to see if it actually plays out. Now, here's the thing about the polar vortex that I find a little distressing from the standpoint of what's been happening up here. And we'll let the maps load over the next 16 days. And let me see where I have this here. Okay, hang on one second here. So here we go. So this is Friday, December 10th. But what's happening with the polar vortex is it's pivoting back, rolling it back to the north coast of Siberia. And while initially you've got troughing that goes into eastern Canada, and you still have a bit of a flow that's coming out of northwest Canada and going into eastern Canada, the vortex strengthens and then starts to pull back westward. Now, the one thing that's different from prior runs, which is kind of interesting here, you'll notice that it pivots to the east-west in this run around the middle of December. I mean, this is not a good-looking polar vortex setup for the eastern part of the United States. I mean, you basically have a flow in Canada like this, and all your cold air is obviously pinned up to where the vortex is, or close to where the vortex is. So you'll see Northern Europe, Siberia, that's where all the cold air is going to be. In the meantime, we actually have a ridge, the upper high in the stratosphere building into the United States. So you look at this and it's like, God, how is this going to happen? But things don't always they don't stay there forever. And I would anticipate that at some point, this is going to change. A couple of people were posting this morning about maybe some kind of polar vortex attack at the latter part of the month. I really am not going to put too much energy or emphasis on that sort of stuff. I'm just going to deal with, what I'm seeing in front of me now. And as I've already said, it's not good. It's not completely hopeless, but at least at this point, it's not good. So let's run through what's happening with regards to the shorter range and also downstairs in the bottom part of the atmosphere. So let's see. Uh, Mr. Contino, the hype from October is something that happens every year. So why even just, I think you need to just kind of forget to pay, just stop paying attention to the usual nonsense that happens in the months going into the winter. I mean, I can give you I gave you my opinion and with regards to what I thought was going to happen, and I've pretty much, I've admitted publicly, I did it the earlier part of the show, that it doesn't look like it's going to happen unless we get a radical change around mid-month and save the second half. But yeah, I'm not a fan of throwing out. Everybody goes to the winters of 95, 96, or any of some of those, really obscenely uh, wonderful winters for snow lovers, and everything apparently is always an analog to those winters, and it never happens. As I told one of my regular followers on Twitter, who he gets into what he sees and makes his analysis and looks at stuff out 2 weeks or 3 weeks ahead of time and forecasts you know potential for some big event. And I'm just like, I just sort of responded the other day, says, why don't we just try for maybe a period of flurries before we start getting into something bigger, because it's just not here. So tomorrow, a warm day. We've got this warm front coming through the northeast with some rain and snow showers tonight. Most of the snow showers, of course, well inland. We'll have some sun tomorrow, a cold front around early afternoon, bring us another shower or two, very brief. Get a little bit of lake effect tomorrow night in the northeast into Friday morning. Then we've got another weak front that'll move through on Saturday. The air behind the front that's coming through on Friday and is pretty much the same as the air that's coming behind the front on Saturday. So there's not going to be a whole lot of change in terms of the temperature profile. And then here's the system for Monday. Low pressure from the northern plains tracks north of Sault Ste. Marie and heads towards James Bay. Trailing cold front, strong southwest flow. We'll get into some showers. I don't know why it's doing this, where at least it's showing measurable precip. I wanted to just kind of use this map to see there is a shot of cold air behind this. That's a reasonable shot of cold air, but this is showing measurable it's not showing the radar echoes. It's showing what it's predicting as far as rainfall or snowfall is concerned. Now on this run, I'll have to look at this a little closer, but it would imply that there might be a changeover at the end come Monday night into Tuesday with the front going by. Sort of a cheap thrill for snow lovers there if it happens. Then we're cold Tuesday into Wednesday. Here comes the next low that moves from St. Louis to southern Indiana, southeast Indiana to upstate New York with a warm front that moves through the northeast. You can see there's actually some rather heavy rain. This is for Tuesday night into Wednesday of next week. And then another short break and then another weaker low toward the end of next week and into next week. And the models a little backed off on this. It had three lows that were pretty much looking the same. It sort of backed off on it. Then here's a fourth system around the 14th. Cold high coming down behind that. And then again, does the ridge, is the ridge off the southeast coast, is it a little bit flatter? Is the north maybe gets a little bit stronger, just kind of flattens everything out, that you get a little setup with perhaps a little bit of overrunning or some sort of weak system. I mean, that's the way I see if something was going to try to happen. So anyhow, let me bring my lovely face back up on the camera on screen here. I don't have. Let me just double check and make sure that I don't have any messages from Mr. Rao. And I do not. By the way, for those of you who have been messaging me, it's taking me a while to get back on those messages. I really do appreciate them, but I have to, when you're not feeling well, there are times where you just want to kind of turn everything off and not respond to all the dings that are, ringing on my on the phone. So if I don't get back to you right away, just give me a little time. I have to just get this, this problem solved with regards to my persistent, um, my persistent temperature issue, fever issues that I have now, because it's been the better part of 3 weeks plus that I've been feeling like this, and now that I've put everything together and saw what the outcome was with regards to the surgery on Sunday. So keep your fingers crossed that tomorrow morning I get a call from the doctor and they tell me, okay, you got an infection, go pick up the antibiotics, you should be fine in a couple of days. So let's hope that that's the way it's going to go. So anyhow, thanks everybody for being here tonight. Most appreciated. I will try to come back on tomorrow night and going forward too on Friday night. And we'll see if I hear from Joe Rao as far as what's going on with his adventure in Antarctica. Hopefully, I'm wrong about the internet, but those are his words. It's woefully slow. All right. Okay, folks. Thanks for being here on this first day of December, and be safe. We will see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.